Imagine you walk into a public square, say in Brisbane or maybe Sydney or Melbourne. You're holding up a sign. It doesn't call for violence. It doesn't use any profanities. It contains just 4 words. Trans women are men, which is a biological reality. But within minutes, people are filming you. Some are shouting at you. And then the police arrive and you're told that your sign is offensive or harmful. You're told to put it away by the police. And if you don't, you might be leaving in handcuffs. Today, I'm looking at the legal reality of 2026 in Australia and our alleged free speech. What actually happens to you legally if you hold a sign that offends certain minority groups or demographics in our public? Is freedom of speech a real shield in Australia, or is it a legal myth? Stay tuned. Okay, guys, so first off, we have to I need to clear up a massive misconception. Australia does not have a First Amendment like the United States does. Sadly, but true. We don't have a broad, explicit constitutional right to free speech, even though we should. Instead, we have what's called an implied freedom of political communication. So let's look specifically at the Queensland context, because that's where I am. In March 2026, Queensland passed the Fighting Anti-Semitism and Keeping Guns Out of the Hands of Terrorists and Criminals Amendment Bill. Now, while the name sounds specific, the legislation significantly strengthened the hate speech and prohibited expression laws. If you hold a sign up in Queensland today that says what I said at the beginning, it's a legal gauntlet. The Anti-Discrimination Act in Queensland under Section 124A, it is unlawful to publicly incite hatred towards, serious contempt for, or severe ridicule, of a person or group on the basis of gender identity. And that can become a public order offence. And police often use public nuisance charges as well. If your sign causes offence to a reasonable person in a way that disrupts public order, you can be moved on or arrested. Now, you can't govern if someone else takes offence to something, just like they can't with you. Offence is taken, not given. But the Queensland Police are now being made to be the feelings police and the expression police. These new 2026 reforms allow authorities to treat slogans as prohibited expression if they are deemed to cause menace or harassment. Historically, we've seen this play out. In various Australian states, activists like Drew Pavlov or gender-critical protesters have been detained not necessarily for what they said, but because the reaction of the crowd created a threat to the peace. In the eyes of the law, the person holding the sign is often treated as the source of the disorder, not the violent, intolerant thugs. Nothing happens to them. The police leave them alone. The police will go after the peaceful person or the one that will cause them less hassle. Now, let's talk about why this is a problem for our free society. A free nation requires a marketplace of ideas. Now, this theory suggests that the remedy for speech you dislike is more speech, not censorship. When we allow the government to decide what is offensive, we hand them a weapon that can be used against any group. Remember, offence is only ever taken. You cannot give offence, and especially not if it is your personal opinion based on beliefs or culture. Offence is also a moving target. What was offensive 20 years ago is mainstream now, and vice versa. If the law is based on feelings, that law is no longer stable. Neither is our legal system. Say the police arrest you because a crowd got angry at your sign. The law is essentially rewarding the angry, violent crowd. And this is called the heckler's veto. It encourages people to be violent or disruptive, to shut down opinions that they hate or they don't agree with what they're trying to say, their narrative. We see this every week with the pro-Hamas supporters in our capital cities, and how regardless of the violence or hate towards the smaller group, ones holding up the Australian or the Israeli flags, or even just one person not aligning with what those pro-Hamas supporters are, that person is the one that will get arrested instead of the violent thugs. Where's the justice or the fairness in that? But here is the most disturbing trend: the rise of the heckler's veto. In a traditional free speech framework, if you're holding a sign and a mob becomes violent towards you, the police's job is to stop the violence. In 2026 Australia, the trend is the opposite now. We're seeing police approach the peaceful person with the sign and tell them to leave for their own safety or to prevent a breach of the peace. Often, if they don't leave, they get arrested. And then they've got a record. Why do they get arrested, but the violent thugs, the terrorist supporters, don't? As I said, if you stay, you're the one arrested for disturbing the peace, while the people shouting threats and throwing objects are often left alone because managing the crowd for the police is too difficult. It gets thrown in the too hard basket, and the police hierarchy are becoming cowards. Now, the government is effectively subsidising outrage. If you want to shut someone up in Australia today, you don't need a better argument. You just need to be loud enough and angry enough that the police decide it's easier to remove the speaker, remove you, than to control the baying mob. And when the law priorities social cohesion over individual expression, it creates a society of enforced politeness. But you can't have a real democracy, my friends, without friction. By arresting the person with the sign to appease the person with the temper, the government isn't keeping the peace. They're teaching the public that the most violent person in the room gets to decide what everyone else is allowed to say. Now, when are they going to bring that into other things? It's domestic violence. When will the victim be arrested over the perpetrator? Because that's the sort of thing that we're looking at here. Everything's just turning A over T of what things should be. And considering this sign I'm talking about, if we can't decide the definition of gender, regardless of which side you're on, without the threat of criminal records, we aren't having a debate at all. We're following a basic script, a script that the government wants us to follow, their narrative. In a truly free nation, the right to speak must include the right to offend. If you only have the right to say things that everyone agrees with, you don't have freedom of speech at all. All you have is a permission slip from the dictators and from the leftist mobs. Now we have to address the elephant in the room here. How the current Australian government, both at the federal level and at the state, like Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, is fundamentally reshaping what allowable speech looks like. In the last 12 months alone, we've seen a wave of anti-hate and public order bills that are some of the most restrictive in our history. We're only a young nation, but these are becoming the most restrictive. For example, the Combating Anti-Semitism, Hate and Extremism Bill 2026 and Queensland's recent amendments have lowered the threshold for what constitutes a crime. It used to be that you had to incite violence. Now that bar has dropped to promoting hatred or even just causing menace or offence. By making the law about the subjective feelings of the listener rather than the objective actions of the speaker, the government has essentially criminalised being unpopular. So if you're unpopular, the government can see you, the police can see you as a criminal. If you speak up, speak your mind, speak your beliefs, speak your worldview. So let's get back to this with the sign. You're in the square. The police approach you. What should you do? And here I've got to give you a disclaimer. I'm a content creator. I try and keep up on the news. I'm not a lawyer. Always seek professional legal advice. But firstly, I would say, in my opinion, what I would do, stay calm and record. Always have a witness or a camera handy. Always switched on. Silence is your friend. But if you do speak, be polite. The police are following the laws that have been put into place above them. A lot of the times they do have discretion, but some of them are too gutless to use discretion. Some of them are just too left these days. We see that in Victoria. Under the Queensland Human Rights Act 2019, Section 21, I think it is, every person has the right to hold an opinion without interference and the right to freedom of expression. So what do you say to the officer? Officer, I'm peacefully exercising my right to freedom of expression and my right to hold an opinion under Section 21 of the Human Rights Act. I'm not inciting violence or using prohibited symbols. And that is important. You must say something along those lines and have yourself recorded or a witness seeing you doing it. Now, they tell you to move. Ask them, am I being detained or am I free to go? And then under what specific section of the law is this sign I'm holding considered a criminal offence? Then look to the good faith argument. Many Australian vilification laws have exemptions for public interest or academic social discussion, all done in good faith, of course. The logic behind that is you aren't there to harass an individual. You are there to state a biological or philosophical position in the matter of a public debate. Even if you follow Edge of the Matrix style in the UK, or he travels all over the world now, but he stands there with his billboard signs on saying trans women are men and stop giving puberty blockers to kids. But he waits for people to come up to him to speak to him. That way he's not harassing anyone. And that's a good idea. Let them come to you. And when they do, never get angry with them. Just be calm. Just put your point across. But know what you're talking about. Have some notes there that you can refer to if you start to get a little bit muddled up in your mind, because they will fire questions at you 100 miles an hour. Now, going on, Australia's at a crossroads. We're seeing more prohibited expression laws than we've ever seen before. Now, while these laws are often framed as protecting the vulnerable, the byproduct is actually a shrinking space for public disagreement. If you believe that trans women are women, you should want the right to say that. And they have the right to say that. But if you believe they aren't, you should also have the right to say that too. But that's when the hate and the violence comes out from the love crowd. If you don't agree with them, even though you agree that they have the right to believe what they want to believe. Once we let the state pull signs out of the hands of peaceful protesters, we all lose. Why do you think these violent pro-Hamas protesters are allowed to protest every week in the capital cities? Because it's their right to do so. But if they've got the right, then so should we. I'm strongly against just sort of this two-tieredness in law and in politics, where the left can say whatever they want, do whatever they want, but as soon as you have a conservative voice, whether it be on abortions, whether it be on transgenderism, which I don't believe there are any transgender people, then you're the one put in a box, not the violent the thugs, not the other side of the argument. Why just one side? Now, I want to know what you think. Has Australia gone too far with the offence laws? Or are these protections necessary for a polite society where we're all yes people? We all just agree with each other. We don't have our own freedom of thought or speech. Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you enjoy this type of video where I look into different things affecting our nation, And I am going to be doing more videos looking into the symbols and the laws that shape our world, but more importantly, here in Australia, the ones that are victimising the peaceful. Thanks for watching. I'm Brian. This is Voice in the Wilderness Australia. Bless you.